Okay, so I'm going to do this again. I hit something. I'm not sure what I hit. But I came in today talking about barriers. I've been doing these sessions on Heart to Heart Mondays. And as you may recall, Monday is the peak day of the week where many people have cardiac events. And you wonder, we can wonder why, because we're coming off a weekend, and that's a time to relax and to really regain our focus on what we're planning to achieve. But evidently it's one of the most stressful ways, if you will, stressful days of the week. And so I've been talking about on Heart to Heart Mondays, barriers to achieving our purpose. And often when you think about barriers, you think about physical barriers, right? We think about the coach, the teacher, the aunt, the uncle, this chair is in my way. The trees don't allow me to really see the sun. You know, we think about the physical barriers, who's preventing you from getting a building, preventing you from getting customers, preventing you from saying what you need to say. We can often focus on those external barriers. And especially in a rush America, where we're always on the go doing something. Our children going to this event, we're going to this event, we're doing this for this person, that we don't take the time to necessarily think about what's going on in our mind. That one of the things I talk about or write about in Cultivate Your Inner Garden is taking the time to really assess those thoughts that often lead to actions, right? Our thoughts lead to actions. And one of the things I am so grateful for, I remember when I was about 14 years old and I was sitting at the dining room table and I rose, I got up, and there was this immense energy that kind of took over my body, that started spreading upwards. And it flowed through my blood vessels, and it got to my heart and lit that up, and it got to my mind. And that's why I was able to understand what it was, heart and mind, is that it was my gratitude towards my mother for sharing stories about her life, her stories, and doing it in such a humble way, not calling people outside their names or so much bitter and hatred, but telling us her stories, which helped me, because at that time, my soul was fertile. I wanted to know the right way to live life. I mean, that's what we're here. We look to our elders to help show us how to live our life, how to navigate earth, how to achieve, when we find out that we have work here to do, how to achieve our divine purpose, right? What we're physically built for. To achieve this body, this vehicle, this costume, if you will, or this our covering of our spirit, what we're here to do. And I just felt this overwhelming gratitude that day, because I knew that there were many who did not do what she did. Or if they did it, it was, you heard the hate, the bitterness, the it that's often rose, that spoke of its pain, right? The hitting of, children in front of others. And my mom was like, if you have something to say, you do it in private. You don't do it around other people. She was not one to call us out in front of others. And she just taught me. So I just used those life lessons and turned them into life principles, the moral foundation to build myself. And I've been sharing those throughout my personal and professional career, personal life, professional career. And it's just amazing how we can just overlook the importance of really cultivating our mind, seeing what thoughts are leading to these actions, especially if you feel stuck. I've been doing talking about NCLEX burnout with NCLEX graduates. And we can give solutions. We can focus on solutions. We can focus on answers. But again, you've heard the saying that if you continually do something the same way, it's insanity. If you continue to have those same thoughts, if you're not addressing those thoughts that are causing NCLEX burnout, feeling that you're not good enough, whether you are writing or screenplays, books, or having a business, whatever it is that you may be doing, parenting, whatever it is, your work, your as an entrepreneur, as an employee, employer, whatever you may be doing. If you're feeling stuck, what thoughts are in you that's keeping you stuck? Right? Because we want to always change. We want to change the outer often, right? Not everyone, but we often look for the outer. If we want to lose weight, we look for the outer. What are those external solutions that I can use to help me lose weight? If we want to change our relationships, what about that person that needs to change? We're not looking at ourselves. And we're not sitting down daily because we're rushing here, there. Kids got to go here. We got to be a part of this crowd. We got to go do this. And so they can like us and we can feel like we belong. And my children, get them out so they can be exposed to, people, and not taking the time to really assess and talk about our thoughts. So much is happening still. Teenage pregnancy, suicide, homicide, hatred, violence, on many levels, domestic abuse, elder abuse, children abuse, that we're not taking the time to really assess, okay, what is causing me to act this way? Why do I feel the need to rush? Why do I feel the need to study hours and hours, take an exam, NCLEX, physical therapist, whatever it is that you're doing? Why do I feel that way? And I believe in the power of open-ended questions, and the answers will often either play out right then and there. You'll hear them if you're sitting quietly and really receptive to it, or over a series of days or weeks or months, the answers will come. And often I believe as they come one at a time, that gives us the space, the time to address those as much as possible before the next one is shown. So I do believe in the power of that. We can so easily forget to assess our inner garden. We can pull the weeds and say, I'm done with that. And then next thing you know, you're looking and there's another weed popping up somewhere, because we take our time to make sure that we're daily assessing our inner garden. We have to daily assess it. And that's what I talk about in Cultivate Your Inner Garden, is that we have to daily assess what weeds, what seeds am I allowing to be sown inside of me, either by others or myself, and how and how am I taking care of that? Am I still seeing that in me? And often we see it in our voice, how we talk to ourselves, and how we treat others. And that brings me to the topic of today, where we're talking about our environment. I've talked about past failures. I've shared my insights on doubt and on others' opinions. And so now talking about environment. And when we often think of environment, we think of external and not the internal. So we have an internal and an external environment. And within us is the thermostat that we need to help us to discern what's going on inside of us if we take the necessary time and to reset ourselves according to our spiritual makeup. That often we go outside ourselves and look for love, look for clarity, look for compassion, look for kindness, but it's right here inside of us. That I believe God placed his universal laws, the same ones that keep the earth separate from the sun, enough space that we don't burn up, keep the water and the land separate, that inside of us are those same universal laws that we have that play into our thermostat of regulating our behavior. Because our part of our goal for living, or our mission, is self-control. It's to self-mastery. It's to align our spirit with our personality. All of this genetic blueprint that we have, grandmother, grandfather, you act like her, you do that, is to align ourselves because we have these unique characteristics that God has made us out of. But one important and critical thing is that he's made us out of his spiritual makeup. And so spirit trumps genetic. And when we combine those, we end up having the character that we need to enjoy the fruit of our labor. You see it now on the news, how people that are successful are doing some things out there that are that do not align with moral character, of right behavior, right? Of respecting others, of kindness. So when you think about right, well, what is right behavior? When you think about it, we are to have dominion over earth, plants, animals, not over people. And so if it's out of alignment with kindness and respect and, treating others as you would want to be treated, seriously treated, like respectfully treated, then we know that's not what we're doing. So I'm not here to judge or condemn, because you will be judged and condemned, but to use what people are doing as an example when we look at our environment. And internal, how are you speaking to yourself? What are you doing every day? What clothes are you wearing? Because when we think about it, our internal environment affects our external environment. It is something that often delegates us or guides us into our external environment. If we think less of ourselves, if we think all men are abusive, or we think that parenting sucks, if we think math sucks, if we think the NCLEX sucks, if we think, whatever we think often plays into what environment we put ourselves in. If we think we're not good enough, we can put ourselves in an environment that continually repeats to us or shows us that we're not good enough. When I talk to the NCLEX graduates, and I've been talking about burnout, is, if you think you're not good enough or you're not going to pass, you can literally self-sabotage yourself. So that's what it is that if we have negative thoughts about ourselves, we often self-sabotage through our environment, our external environment, right? And so external comes from the internal, our thoughts. And so, whatever we may be dealing with, whether it's weight loss, weight gain, again, parenting, owning a business, writing, books, screenplays, whatever, teaching, coaching, whatever it may be, what are those thoughts that you have of yourself? Believing, if you're stuck, believing. And it could be that maybe part of that is you're going through a prep phase, because everything that we do has a preparation, the right preparation time for us, again, to be able to enjoy the fruit of our labor. What I believe is important is that I believe that if you ask, you shall receive. What the Bible often tells us, you ask, Matthew 7:7, you ask, you shall receive. One of the other things that I've started doing with the help of Dr. Miles Monroe, Neville Goddard, is that the prayer of search me, right? Search my heart, search me, God, and see if there's any wickedness inside of me, and that to lead me along that right way. That's Psalm 139. The other thing is that create in me a pure heart and a steadfast spirit, right? Create in me a pure heart and a steadfast spirit. That's also, I believe, Psalm 51:10. And so it's not so much about the Bible, but it's so much about who we want to become. Letting go of any wounds, inner wounds that we have inside of us, that we can really be able to see ourselves as we truly are, see others as they are, and not this divisiveness and I'm better than you. We're all on that same level, right? We all have different things that we're here to do with unique experiences, genetic makeup, but this underlying connection that connects us all is this spiritual makeup that we have. And so seeking what it is that I need to get rid of as an early age. I've shared before where I was listening to one of my favorite singers on the radio. And then right after the song, they were talking about how he was in trouble. And I was thinking, okay, so being rich makes you evil, right? Basically, but it's not. It's those underlying issues that you have not addressed that continue to follow you throughout your lifetime, right? Until you intervene. And so it's important to do that. It's important to assess ourselves. Then we can look at our environment, right? And sometimes when we assess ourselves, we automatically change our environment. We automatically know we have a standard that we are not going to smoke, drink, or, whatever it is that you are not going to do. For me, it was like clubs. I wasn't a club person. And it took a person to literally confirm when I went into a club one day with a friend. And the guy, and I didn't really want to talk to the guy. And he was like, well, what are you here for? And I literally said, exactly, what am I here for? And I was ready to go. So we have to decide, we have to have this standard that we hold ourselves to. And this standard becomes who you are When you shape yourself, when you let God mold you, when you purify yourself, and becomes our standard. So often we take this standard with us, and if we see that whatever it is does not align with that standard, we don't get ourselves into, right? We go away. If we're not a smoker, we typically are not around people that smoke, or we get far away from them, right? And so you have to have a standard. And I believe one way to have a standard, to me, is the Bible. The Bible becomes a standard. What I learned about Jesus, he became the standard. He became someone that I looked up to when I saw him as a little girl. And so again, this is not about religion. I don't think Jesus was about religion. He was more about the character. You know, he spent years studying God's word, the Bible, and then he began his service around 30. Do we all have to start at 30? No. It's however our earthly curriculum is set. So we look at our external environment. And so I remember I was at a football game, and these people start yelling. Audiences started yelling, "Come on, get with the program, do it right." You know, and they were kind of yelling at the kids / coaches, these little bitty kids, 8, 9 years old. And sure enough, there was a little girl that started yelling the same words. That there's a saying, and I want to make sure I say it right. It's by Thomas Watson, when he said, and my mom uses it often. She said, association begets assimilation. My mom would say association leads to assimilation. That whoever we associate ourselves with, that we often will pick up their traits. That's why when I talk about parenting and creating a generational love cycle, that whoever we are as a parent, we often teach, because our children look up to us. They're looking to us to help show them the way. They're rightfully doing so. That's our job here. That's our role here on earth, is to help to love and guide our children and help them achieve the purpose they're here to do. That is part of our purpose as a parent. And so she's yelling, thankfully not curse words. They weren't cursing, but she's yelling the same thing that the mother was yelling. And I remember, it took me back to, even now when I say things, and, often you can tell if you're saying things correctly. If your children starts repeating what you're saying, listen to it. Listen to it and say, okay, does that sound right? If your child starts cursing at you because you've been cursing at them, does that sound right? Is that really what I'm supposed to do for my child? When your child is drinking, when your child is smoking, when your child is drinking coffee at 16, is that what you're supposed to do? So we have to have this honest conversation with ourselves. That all of us, including myself, have this honest conversation with ourselves and say, okay, I'm in this situation, but this experience tells me more about me. I've said that experiences teach you a few things. Our experiences are for a few reasons. One is to reflect the truth, who we are. This is not to make us bitter or to make us hate ourselves or hate life or hate people. Number 2, in every experience, there's something to learn about yourself. And number 3, that in every experience, there's a treasure. There's something that you can take on to the next experience. And then one of the things that my mother often said is that nothing happens overnight. These weeds that continue to sow within us, to nourish, we've entertained them. They started maybe when we were children, and somehow they were nourished when we were in school, and then throughout our job and career, and we're still expressing it as in adulthood. So things don't happen overnight. We have to sometimes go backwards a little bit to understand, okay, when did I pick up that seed, that weed, and as I'm uprooting it and pulling it out as much as possible. So when we're looking at our external environment, there was a thing that I heard. I was actually listening to Deepak and Wayne Dyer, a book they did together. And one of the things that Wayne Dyer, I believe, said was that when you can't change your environment, you have to become the standard. And that's being yourself. But at first, you have to know thyself. You have to know your standard. You have to cultivate that standard within you. That I'm not going to, you may have some good things and some not so good things. Take the good and I say leave the bad. That's one of the things I mentioned in my memoir. Take the good and leave the bad. And you take the little things and help build your foundation. And as you become more yourself, your true self, and you're honest with yourself, you're getting away things that you shouldn't have, you eventually start to shine light on others, and they see themselves, and either they can leave or they begin to change accordingly. And there's, I think about the Bible verse that, the wife saving the husband, and vice versa, the husband being able to save the wife. There are relationships I have left. I've left jobs when they were cursing and really talking down to the people that were coming in, the clients. I've left relationships when someone was doing something I didn't want to do. That I had a goal. I wanted to go to school, go to college, and I wanted to achieve this goal. I didn't want to do that. And so it was a conflict. And so I had to make the decision. I made the decision that I had to split ties. I couldn't go in that realm. So you have to decide. You have to really seek discernment in your situation and seek what's best for you now. What do you do? Because often we're so afraid to stop being in an environment. We seek environment because we want to belong. We want people to like us. We want to feel like we belong. We already belong. We're here. Our birth justified that we needed to be here and that we do belong on earth. Sometimes that journey may be a little just you or not that many people. But when we look at our environments, we have to assess them and look and see, okay, am I living by what I believe? Is this environment supporting my beliefs, or is it changing me to something I don't want to be? So we have to we have to discern, we have to seek discernment. And what is my right course of action today? What do I need to do to myself to help me get out of this environment? It's so important to do that. When you marriage, maybe it's not something that you can do. You have choices when you're a child and you see things your parents aren't doing, or when you see things that, you're around people who are really speaking negative about you and calling you outside your name. My son and daughter, my son experienced that, where people were speaking perversion in the school he was in and calling him outside of his name. And I knew the longer he kept in that school, that it doesn't have to be a suicide. It's an internal death before the external plays out. That's what we have to realize when we're thinking about suicide and all these other actions. It happens internally first, and then it's expressed on the external. So we have to, as parents, sometimes make that sacrifice. I get it. To pull our children out of school, pull ourselves out of environments, because when you do that, you make a statement. And if you're not able, to change the environment, help change it, if they're not listening to you, there's a Bible verse that says, dust off your feet and move on. And we can use that for any relationship that we are in. That when we're able to do that. If we're not, how can you be the example? How can you be the standard in the environment that you are in? And so I hope I've given you a few things to think about. I know this is a little bit longer than I probably used to do. I had to do it 3 times, but 3 times is worth it. If I can, and I know what I say to you, I say to myself. What I say, I reinforce to myself beliefs that I believe that resonate with me. And I hope that something has resonated with you, to know that you have some control over your environments. Whether it may be that it doesn't have to come to an end of yourself, but a beginning of a relationship of something that is much higher than you. A relationship, something that knows you are here for a reason, someone that fashioned you fearfully and wonderfully, fearfully in knowing what you would experience, wonderfully in knowing that you had everything you needed to transcend an experience. So how is your environment? What do you think about your environment? How is your external environment helping you to achieve or your goal, or preventing you from achieving your goal? You feel like it's preventing you. Always start on the internal. Then the external will either change often, it'll show you what it is that you need to do. So remember, you don't have to be a statistic. Just because others are having cardiac events doesn't mean that you have to. That's something my mother often said. Just because others are experiencing things doesn't mean that you have to. that within this moment, this time, and this precious now that we have right now that just left me, in this now, that I can change how I think about a situation. I can change me from the inside out. And through that change, I'm going to attract things that are like me. We know that is the law of attraction. And I do believe that, whatever you may call it, that whatever you are, you often attract, right? And it doesn't have to be, what they're using me. Well, it doesn't have to be that you're using people. It could mean that you feel used. It could mean that you're still carrying that thought. And so by that thought, you are attracting people that are still doing the same things that you're trying to get away from. All right. So I hope this has served you well. And thank you so much for watching. And as always, make this lifetime great, because you still can. No matter what, you can still do something now. You are alive and you have every means inside of you to do something now, to change the internal and to affect the external. I'll talk to you guys soon.